Hi my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. Today we have a few really interesting tidbits, and we begin with Andor episode 6. The mid-season episode was definitely the best of season 1 so far, at least in my opinion. It's what the last few episodes had been building towards, and had the perfect balance of action, the spy thriller element, suspense, and when it came to the eye itself, some of the best visuals we've seen in all of live action Star Wars. And on top of all of this, episode 6 fulfilled the Tony Gilroy promise that there would be tragedy and not all the characters make it out alive, and of all the deaths, I think we can all agree that Nemik's was the saddest. It made the rebellion team's escape bittersweet, but before Nemik died, he had begun to give Cassian instructions on how to escape, and one of his final words to him was the command, climb. Now at first, I didn't think much of it. Like many others, I was just purely entranced by the dramatic nature of the storytelling. But we've heard this exclamation before, and it's a callback to Rogue One that seems very deliberate from Tony Gilroy. K-2SO is a fan favourite from the 2016 movie. Alan Tudyk, who played him, said that while his character doesn't appear in Andor Season 1, we're probably going to see him in Season 2, and we're going to see Tony Gilroy give a retelling of the comics where Andor meets him. And by the time of Rogue One, K2 was Andor's sassy companion, and is a vital part of Andor's later journey before he dies. In the movie, when K-2SO is in the Imperial Vault on Scarif, we see him giving his friends instructions on where to find the Death Star plans. He ends by telling Andor and Jyn to climb, so we've heard this command before. Evidently, the directors of Andor, in this case Susanna White, who's been fantastic by the way, wanted one of the last scenes with Nemik to be as heartbreaking as the one in Rogue One. But the importance of that exchange goes beyond just the parallel between the two projects. It's symbolic of Andor's journey between where he is now at the end of episode 6 and 5 years down the line in Rogue One. While K-2SO played a significant part in Cassian's life as a rebel, in a not so direct way, so did Nemik. At this stage, Andor has still yet to commit to the rebellion, and as we saw, Vel gave Andor Nemik's manifesto. Andor's own commitment to the cause and willingness to sacrifice himself is not fully realised until his fateful mission to Scarif in Rogue One. Perhaps Nemik's manifesto would lead Cassian on the road to Scarif. Perhaps his promise to Nemik that he would be safe moves him. Now yesterday, I spoke to my good friend Star Wars Santa, and when we discussed Nemik's manifesto, the idea of it being passed around the early rebellion came up, and I'm starting to think that without knowing it, Nemik's manifesto might hold the ideals and beliefs that the later Rebel Alliance is built upon. So what if Andor's heart is changed, and later on he gives a copy to Mon Mothma, and word spreads to Bail Organa, Leia, Admiral Akbar, and so on. Nemik might have been young when he died, but he was certainly politically competent, and while he never reached his full potential, he idealized what a rebellion meant in his writings, and he embodied that as a person. What I'm saying is, I think that manifesto is going to be more important than we think. And so, in one obscure word, Tony Gilroy connected two figures who would prove invaluable to Cassian's life. And of course, like many of us, I can't wait to see K2 eventually introduced into the show. But as I say, it's probably not going to be until season 2. Millie Bobby Brown, who a few months ago was rumoured to be signing onto a Star Wars project, was seen at Galaxy's Edge 2 days ago. She was with her boyfriend Jake Bon Jovi, and according to StarWars.com, she told them that Princess Leia is her favourite character. Now there's been a lot of speculation of who she could play, if of course she's introduced to the Star Wars universe, and so many fans have come out and said a young Leia or Padme would be the character she most resembles, and those are really good fan castings. Now I should say, I don't necessarily think her appearance at Galaxy's Edge means anything, but you never know. The Stranger Things actress clearly has a very bright future ahead of her, and I'm sure if Lucasfilm wants, and that's what's in the cards for her, she would fit in really well into the Star Wars universe. But for now, she just had a fun day out at Galaxy's Edge with her boyfriend, so it probably doesn't mean too much, but let's keep an eye on that. So finally guys, calling all fans of Ahsoka. An exclusive excerpt from StarWars.com, taken from the Mandalorian Guide to Season 2, reveals some very interesting information about our favourite Togruta, notably her journey in the Mandalorian, but also going forward in her own series. So let's take a look at this. Now I'm just going to highlight some important bits and leave out the obvious. The excerpt does state things we already know about the character, and things that aren't adding too much to our understanding of her. But one section titled Fear of the Dark reveals that Ahsoka is still traumatized by Anakin turning to the dark side, especially considering she had to confront her former master in Star Wars Rebels during Twilight of the Apprentice, a scene that's rumoured to be in flashbacks in the Ahsoka show. And as we see in chapter 13, it's the reason she doesn't want to train Grogu. So let's take a look at what the excerpt says. Formerly guardians of peace and justice in the Galactic Republic, Jedi are powerful knights able to tap into the energy field known as the Force. Hunted down by the Empire during Order 66, the Jedi were ultimately destroyed at the end of the Clone Wars. The few who managed to survive were forced to scatter across the galaxy and hide out. As we know, by the time of Order 66, Ahsoka was no longer a Jedi, but she's carving out her own path in the Force instead. They say Ahsoka is profoundly strong in the Force and is experienced enough to wield it effectively. On the planet of Corvus, she used the Force to connect with Grogu and hear his thoughts, but upon noticing the strong bond between Grogu and Din, Ahsoka refused, worrying Grogu's affection for him would make him vulnerable to his fears. And the reason she was so adamant about it and said, "No, I've seen what this can do to the best of us," means her experience with Anakin has proven to her that it's not worth the risk, especially for Grogu. It's something that even Master Yoda once said: "Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering." Feelings that, according to Ahsoka, not even the most powerful Jedi of all time would be able to control. And what's really interesting about the Ahsoka series is that Ahsoka might face some more trials within the Force. I don't think the Dark is going to pull her in, but she's going to face some challenges, especially when looking for Ezra, and even when she finds him. He is a Jedi, or at least he was, before he and Thrawn got launched into hyperspace in Rebels Season 4. We're not too sure where Ezra is at in the Force. I assume based on his trials in Rebels that he is going to still maintain that path. I don't think, as some fans suggest, that he's turned to the dark side, but you never know what Filoni has in store. The dynamic between Ahsoka and Ezra is going to be interesting after all these years, and more than anything, I think she's going to see that Ezra is way more suitable to be a mentor to Grogu. But according to this excerpt, Ahsoka still has a lot to learn. She is still a Force user, and her relationship to the Force at this stage is probably a lot more mature. Ahsoka releases next year, so share your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. Where do you think Ahsoka is at in her personal journey? Do you think she'll return to the ways of the Jedi? Share your fan theories in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a good one.
And speaking of the ship, I've seen some speculation, and maybe even you mentioned, the onboard control unit of that ship. Is there a relationship to K-2SO somehow, are we thinking?
I think definitely. Just the way he looked at Andor. And also the story of how Andor gets K-2SO or meets him. They maybe have reprogrammed whatever he's got inside that system. I've also seen some speculation that B2EMO is K2, but I don't think so.
Oh, I would never have gone there with B2, but I could get my head around the ship. Right, and the main reason why I could get my head around the ship, right, is there's precedent already, because I know L3 is not everyone's most popular droid sometimes, right? But there's precedent, right, to droids and ships, and some things coming together there in ways that they've already canonized, right? So that's interesting. That would be interesting if that is the case. The ship is a cool ship, right? And I know we're going to see it again, at least in one more battle.
I wanted to get your opinion on the Easter eggs, if we're going to get like any significance to them, or if they're literally just background noise.
Well, and another interesting point on that, right, is I don't think we've gotten the scene yet where potentially Plo Koon's mask is in view, right? We had a similar scene, but when I look back at the printout it wasn't that he wasn't holding in the picture with Plo Koon's mask that we've seen. He was holding a different kind of a scepter, and it was a different angle. So it makes me think we've not even seen potentially all the Easter eggs in his gallery yet. But I think they're just, to answer your question directly, I think they're just there as placement, as you might expect a rare antiquities dealer would have rare things to sell.